Hello, everyone. I was looking around Reddit and I found this person who was asking for a game review. They are 11Q, and I was like, I didn't do Dragon League reviews this week. I sat them out this week. And since I haven't reviewed any games this week, I decided why not. So we'll go ahead and review this game for this player named Ford Territory. And it looks like they are playing a 3Q named Zhuang 80486. Now I haven't taken a look at this game at all yet. Uh, but we'll go ahead and see how it happens and see what happens. See if we can help this player pinpoint kind of like what's going on in their game, so what they can do to improve. Let's go ahead and see. Okay, so player plays crosscut. Um, It's fine. It's fine. Crosscut's generally pretty complicated, but I think if you have played it before, it's perfectly fine. I recommend when you're at the earlier levels, we should just probably just play some normal stuff. It's much easier to get better learning the normal standard stuff. I know to a lot of people that it may not be fun, but when you go around asking, what can I do to make learning better? What can I do to learn better? One of those things can be to play in the easiest way for people to teach you possible. Not a lot of people are studied in the crosscut, and it leads to a lot of different situations that are abnormal for people. So when people are trying to review games for you, they may look at this and just be like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I've got no clue." For me, I'm in that similar boat. I wouldn't be able to exactly tell you how to play it from a crosscut opening, but I can imagine that it's going to be almost similar to a normal opening, in which case that makes G17 probably not the best move. Normally, we probably want to approach, and if we are going to play somewhere around our own stone, we would probably play a normal enclosure. So we can play like this or like this, and it's the same up here. We can do like this or this. Um, but normally I would approach, or I would 3-3. Personally, I would probably just approach though. I guess I should probably explain kind of why this is not as good as the simple enclosure. Well, the first one is we have more Joseki around this, which means that we have more an idea of what we're supposed to do for follow-up. But more so, I can imagine that this leaves a lot more weaknesses in the corner than this does. This is more saying, hey, I know what I want, and this is what I'm building, as to where maybe when we're playing here, it kind of feels like we're trying to build in this area, which we clearly know is not going to be as big as the corner. It kind of feels like we're trying to, in fact, it almost feels like we're trying to stretch for the side rather than the corner. And it's really important to remember that corners are easier to defend than sides, and then sides are easier to defend than the center. All right, I do like it. I would probably approach a little closer again, but I do think that the extension is perfectly fine. And we can already kind of see what's the opponent has planned here. And this is probably why our G3 isn't as good. As long as we play standard here, though, or just have a general idea of what we're supposed to do, we're probably going to be almost fine. Um, and so generally you want to connect here at D3, or you want to play a drop at like B3. This almost feels like gibberish. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I just mean that I'm not really sure what this move accomplishes. Um, but we should be making sure that we're trying to keep our solid points here. The corners are really good to keep, really good to have. And this allows white to take away that corner in a very Sente-ish kind of way, right? Because we have to respond here. We can't really ignore this. And it almost feels like now we're really focused on the side of the board rather than the corner of the board, right? And I can tell you right now, as a DDK or an SDK or a low Dawn player, corners should always be your absolute goal. Um, they're just so easy to hold. They're really difficult to attack. So, I mean, if your opponent can't attack it, it makes it easier for you to hold it, in which case it's going to be better for you as a DDK, an SDK, or a lower Dawn player, rather than trying to fight over sides and then center, right? I would actually probably 3-3 here. This is one of those situations where I would 3-3. I feel like the side in this case is not important for black or white. And it almost funny is that I don't actually think this side is also important for black or white. However, I can tell you for sure that this corner is important for white. So it kind of makes sense that we would want to go for this. That, or maybe we go ahead and approach this lower right corner. But let's go ahead and speed up a little bit. Okay, good. We've got our base. Good move by white. White doesn't want to get trapped inside. So say if white goes ahead and tries to create enclosure, black can go ahead and play here and try to say, hey, this is what I'm building. This is what I want. So I like white's move. I like black's move here. This is good. I do like the double Hane for white. Yeah, so far I would say this is not bad. So far I would say the only move that I think is particularly really bad for black is probably this one. So far for territory, I would say this is your only bad move up to this point. So far you're doing pretty good. This is probably a little slow. I would extend here first. I have a YouTube video where I talk about exactly how important this coming out here is. I would play here first, and then you can either Tanuki to over here to go ahead and put pressure on this corner, or we can go ahead and we can expand here. And so one way that we know when to come down here or to kind of pressure on this corner is we need to consider where is the biggest portion of the board. I think this is probably one of the biggest mistakes as when you're getting better, or like you'll even see like low dawn players not doing this, is they'll try to attack something right away. But it is really important for us to look at like in this position of the board and look at it and go, where are the most open parts of the board? This is not the most open part of the board. I understand why you're doing it. You're afraid that your opponent is going to invade here. But it's not worth taking the Gote here. It's not worth taking the Gote here. And this is not the biggest side of the board. This is not the biggest side of the board. Our biggest side of the board is here. And if not there, then it's going to be here. And we can argue that this over here is probably the equivalent to this over here. So that means the bottom side is the biggest of the board. However, in this very specific case, I would say that playing this pincer here is probably really big because one, we can assume that white's going to come back and protect their territory. Probably not like this. They'll probably kick or something like this, and then they might pincer. But the idea is if we play a player who knows what they're doing, they'll likely kick and defend their corner to some capacity, and then you'll get a base here, and that's actually pretty decent. But if we want to go for a more simpler play, we could probably just simply get this extend on the bottom of the board. And we can see that white chooses the correct side of the board. I think this is very important for white to get, especially when we know that there are weaknesses here. I do like the shoulder hit. I do think this is a fine move. I would almost be tempted to pincer, but I do think this is fine. I do like the shape. Very good shape from black. Turn, I'm not sure what this turn was played for. It feels like you wanted to do something and then you kind of just played a move. It's better for us to just build like this. In fact, you can kind of see that we have a plan going here. Like, look at this. Like, this is all territory, almost. Like, sure, the opponent can invade it, like, say, now, for example. But, I mean, the idea is that you have a plan going with this kind of move, where we're building in this area, we're expanding it from here to here, we're slowly expanding. We've got kind of this wall, like with this, we have an idea of what we want to do. And this is really good. But the problem is that this move doesn't really add to that. Now, if you'd played here, it would have been fine. But this move still would have been a really strange exchange. It just seems like a pointless exchange that we didn't need to make. This is probably a little too greedy. I do think that this move is good in terms of it works well with this. And if we do get, like say we get this, then sure, we've got something on our hands. The problem is I don't think it's likely that our opponent is going to play this way. Okay, so they did play that way. So then now it's actually really good for us to go back to this move because now we have a plan that we're working out where it's like, hey, we're starting to like really call out the center area and saying, hey, this is pretty big. White is playing way too passive here. White should be a little bit more aggressive. I don't like this move. We're not we're not going to get too many points here. This is likely going to be reduced very easily. We're more likely to get points in this area. Yeah, let's go ahead and speed up a little bit. Ooh. It kind of looks like we're looking for a kill that doesn't exist. And we just end up throwing away points for it, but we're also creating empty triangles. We're also creating empty triangles. Sure. Our opponent should play here and play like this. You're going to end up getting squeezed, and this is very painful. Very, very, very painful. And then we have to go ahead and live in the corner, and this is not optimal. See, I think that up to this point, you actually played fine. Like you didn't play that bad. Like you actually played really, really well, essentially for an 11Q. The problem now is we're kind of getting into this idea of, oh my gosh, we're behind. We better do something about it. Let's just go crazy. And it feels like we're going crazy here. It feels like we were doing well, and then we were just like, oh, nothing I'm doing is actually helping. I better go crazy, right? Um, and now we end up kind of losing these stones for it, and that's very painful. Yeah, I'm not really sure the purpose of this movie. Either it feels like we're protecting this cutting point, but I'm not sure how important that is. I would still want to go with the idea that I'm trying to build this area. Yeah, it looks like things are falling apart. It does look like things are falling apart. We're gonna go ahead and speed up a little bit here. I would try this. I would try this and go for this ko. And if white connects, then we can go ahead and play here and we can make an eye. But it's very difficult at this point. It almost looks like this game just really fell apart once we got to the fighting. Okay, I now obviously this is not good for black in the sense that black died on the left side of the board. But for the sake of learning, I think that you have something good here still. It looks like you're still building. It looks like you have an idea of where your points are going to come from, and that's still really, really good. That's still really good. However, we don't want to play this. Just simply play here. This is not good because your opponent can play this move, and now you can't do anything about it. You can't cut them apart. Yeah, now it looks like you're trying to cut it apart. Good job. This does work. At least I think it does. Yep, does look like it does. I would almost probably be a little bit more greedy and just extend here. You are behind, so you should feel the need to play the absolute green moves. This does work. White cannot live. White is dead. There's nothing white can do. I understand that you are afraid of what white can do, so you play this way. But you are behind, so you need to be absolutely confident in every move you do. Unfortunately, that doesn't live. This will live, though. Now we're threatened to connecting up, and if they connect, we get to make life. If they block, if they try to go ahead and play here, then you can go ahead and connect up and live. But yeah, so my comments for this game, what I think you should work on, because I actually think you played a really good opening. I mean, obviously there were a couple slow moves in the opening. There were definitely a couple slow moves in the opening, but like I don't think your opening is that bad, especially if we're in 11Q. I don't think your opening is that bad. There was a couple slow moves, like this one made no sense. So what I would say to work on, because it looks like you know where your territory comes from, I would probably try to capitalize on that territory. Make your opponent come into your territory and fight you. Don't try to fight. Don't try to bring the fight to your opponent. Let them come to fight you, because it is likely that they're not going. What's going to likely happen is when you play this move, they're going to look at this and go, "Wow, that is big. That is big. That's a lot of points to count." And I will tell you right now, most players below a certain rank do not count. They just look at big areas of the board and go, wow, that is huge. I should do something about that. And I think it is very likely that your opponent is going to try to reduce this, and these are the fights that you want to take because they're in your territory. Um, Now, the other thing would obviously be to play more Go matches. I'm not saying you're playing enough because I don't know. I haven't looked at your record, but it looks like you really fell apart when you got to the fighting. You tried to fight your opponent in really random areas of the board, and ended up paying for it really badly. You just pretty much paid for it, um, and that led to losing this game harder than you probably should have. It looks like at one point you just started kind of like going nuts. You know, you just didn't really know what to do anymore. Um, and playing more games and getting more experience is going to be how you basically win that kind of stuff. But other than that, yeah. All right. Hopefully you learned something from this video, and hopefully everyone else learned something from this video and enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you to all my Patreons who help support my content and allow me to do this kind of thing for a living. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video.